exciting announcement. This year, 10 bills dealing with smoking in public places have been introduced in the General Assembly process. At least 10, I may have undercounted. And the bills have been introduced by Democrats and Republicans, and they've been introduced by House members and Senate members. We've had a productive dialogue about these different bills, and I'm happy to announce, and then you're going to hear from other speakers today, that we've found a compromise. You know, not the perfect bill, compromises aren't perfect, but I think a very good bill, and a bill that those of us who are standing here today are very excited about. The bill will ban smoking in restaurants in Virginia with 2 exceptions. First, there will be an exception for private clubs. Second, there will be an exception for restaurants that invest in enclosed areas with separate ventilation systems so that smoking can occur there in a way that will wall off the effects of the secondhand smoke from other patrons of the restaurant. This is a good thing for restaurant patrons, and it's a good thing for workers. We think it balances the rights of people to enjoy a legal product with the public safety interests of Virginians, and especially in restaurants where studies have shown that workers who work in restaurants where smoking is allowed have a double risk of coming down with lung cancer. So this is a good example of compromise, and I want to thank all the legislators who put in bills, and again, represent this as a true bipartisan achievement of both houses. I want to thank the members of the advocacy community and all others who have been at the table over the last couple of years sharing ideas and strategies. We've looked at a lot of different ways to come at this. A lot of different bills and ideas have been put on the table, and all of them helped us get to this place. And finally, I want to thank the legislators, those standing here and others who introduced bills, played a part in the compromise, threw in ideas as we talked this through to find the solution that we're acknowledging today. And in particular, I want to thank 3 individuals who are going to follow me to the podium and talk about this bill. First, Speaker Howell. Bill and I enjoy working together on a lot of matters where we work to try to find common ground. We work very closely on matters like land conservation tax credit, the repeal of the estate tax, a whole series of other things where we work closely together. And this is another good example of, again, taking those different bills put forth by different legislators in both houses and trying to find a compromise. And I want to thank the Speaker for his efforts to make this happen. Second, Chris Jones. Chris is the chairman of the General Laws Committee in the House, where the bills that came out of the Senate were assigned. Chris, recognizing that not only did he have Senate bills, but he had bills that House members had put in that were going to be before him, took a look at the variety of bills and was instrumental in trying to figure out what the right compromise would be. And then finally, the third speaker you hear from after me is Senator Ralph Northam. Senator Northam has enormous credibility on this issue as an individual who's devoted his life to the medical service of children. And he's a passionate advocate on this point. He had a bill that, as you know, passed out of the Senate dealing with restaurants. This compromise is slightly at variance with his bill, but he was very willing to work to find that compromise that I think will be good for Virginia. So I'll ask the Speaker to come first, followed by Chris Jones, and then Ralph Northam, and when they're done, we'll open it up and take questions. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Governor. The Governor's exactly correct. This is a compromise. In most of your compromise situations, neither side gets exactly what they want, but I feel comfortable that the rights of citizens to enjoy a legal product has been protected, and the rights of citizens who don't want to have secondhand smoke when they're having their dinners has been protected as well. The Governor is also correct, and there's, I think, a long history of reaching out on issues where we can agree, where we work together. He mentioned the conservation tax credit bill. He's been a tremendous supporter of that. We worked together on House Bill 3202, which did make significant changes in land use and reform of VDOT and things like that. Worked very closely with the Governor on that. We've worked together on issues where, we have an opportunity to agree on the issues, and we'll continue to do that. We're working very closely with the Governor and his staff on putting together this budget, which is a tremendous difficult situation. So I thank the Governor for his working with us. I thank the members of my caucus who have been putting forward different ideas. This is something that I think puts to rest a contentious issue that's been around for a long time. And I would like now to ask Chris Jones, who's, as the Governor said, chairman of our General Laws Committee, to explain some of the specifics of the bill that will be coming forward. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning. I'll give you a couple things on process. We will have a full public hearing this afternoon in General Laws. We will hear the Senate bill, and we will hear a House bill that will both be conformed to a substitute, and there will be ample time for discussion, both pro and con, on the merits of the bill. And so those two bills will be heard this afternoon in the General Laws full committee. I would like to say that to get to this point took a lot of work. The Speaker, Kirk Cox, and members of my caucus and members of the governor's staff worked very hard on trying to come up with something that made sense. And I was committed months ago to try to have a full and fair hearing of this. Much has been made about this form, that form of a bill. The bottom line was a total smoking ban would have never made it out of committee. I think this is something, as the governor and the speaker both mentioned, is good for Virginia, and I'm proud that we have worked on it in a bipartisan way, Senate and House, likewise working on something I think that will benefit all Virginians. And I'll be glad to answer any questions once Senator Northam gets on speaking.
Thank you, Delegate Jones, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Governor Kaine. I have been practicing pediatric neurology in Norfolk for about 20 years, and last year I came to the Capitol in hopes of making the health of all Virginians better, especially our children. One of the ways that we can do this is to make them exposed to less secondhand smoke. The science is clear, the people have spoken, the verdict is in. Secondhand smoke is bad for our health. Just a couple areas, looking at our children, the instance of asthma, allergies, otitis media, bronchitis, pneumonia, and even SID, sudden infant death syndrome, are higher when these toddlers and babies are exposed to secondhand smoke. Looking at adults, certainly the incidence of cancer, particularly lung cancer, coronary artery disease, which leads to heart attacks, vascular disease, which leads to stroke. We know that they're all higher. We have approximately a little bit over 1,000 deaths in Virginia each year because of secondhand smoke. We have health care expenditures of greater than $125 million a year because of secondhand smoke. About 75% of Virginians have asked us as their leaders to provide them a smoke-free environment. I think that our governor, his staff, I think that our legislators have listened and we have acted. I am very pleased to report that because of a bipartisan effort, a lot of effort from our governor and his staff, a lot of effort from the Heart Association, the Lung Association, the Cancer Society, we now have a bill that will allow all Virginians to go into a restaurant throughout Virginia and to enjoy their meal in a smoke-free environment. This will make Virginia healthier. It will decrease our health care expenditures secondary to the smoke. And I think that at the end of the day that businesses will be in a lot better shape, our restaurant businesses. So I'd like to thank everybody that's been involved in this endeavor that's helped make this a reality. I think we'll now open up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. If I could just say in conclusion, I also really want to thank members of advocacy groups here. We have folks from the restaurant associations, hospital society, medical society, marching dimes, medical organizations, pediatricians, as Ralph mentioned, Heart Lung Cancer Society. These three organizations were key. Not everyone got exactly the bill that they would have drafted. It was just up to them, and so I'll acknowledge it. There are those who, would wish it would change here or there, but I am saying this is the deal that we've all agreed to. You see representatives of all four caucuses standing here beside me. This is the deal that we've agreed to, and we're not going to change it unless it's by agreement. And so we're going to make sure that this is a compromise that sticks and does so to advance the health needs of all Virginians. With that, we'll open it up and be glad to take questions for anybody. Yeah, Tim.
Doesn't this type of bill, though, penalize the small mom-and-pop type restaurants, the small bars, and reward the larger establishments that may be able to afford and have space for an enclosed room where these small bars do not have any space or room to enclose?
Tim, the experience, and I'll just take a crack at that first, see if others want to say it, the experience of other states have been that this kind of bill doesn't penalize anybody. Doesn't hurt the restaurant business at all, it actually helps it. And that has been the experience of the states that have passed these bills. It's almost half of American states have now gone this direction. And there are, differences, subtle differences between the various statutes, but this has not been a bad thing for the restaurant business in the states that have passed. Judge?
Question for Mr. Speaker. Why do this compromise now? Why not in years past? What's different this year?
Well, I think the big difference is that both sides were willing to yield. You know, the bill that was presented, in fact, the bills that are before us from the Senate are total bans. It's private clubs, so there are no exceptions. You can tell the guy that fought at the Battle of the Bulge that he can't have a cigarette with his coffee at the VFW club. You can't do things like that. So we were able to take some of the more onerous parts out of the bills that have been presented. It was a compromise, as the governor and I both have said. It's not a situation where everybody's completely happy with everything, but it's a compromise.
Did the elections play any impact, Mr. Speaker? The upcoming elections?
No.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering what motivated you in particular to work on a compromise where it doesn't seem that is happening in years past.
Well, contrary to what the press likes to report, the governor and I have a good relationship, and we talk about a lot of issues over the year, all year round. And we've talked about smoking in restaurants in the past, and we had an opportunity this year to come up with an agreement again that I hope a majority in the House can agree with, and a majority in the Senate, and I hope the governor agrees with. I know the governor agrees with this plan, but it was just an opportunity that hadn't been here before.
And I would add on to that, Shelley, just to say, when you see 10 bills being introduced by Democrats and Republicans and House members and Senate members, that tells you that, hey, we ought to be able to put all those bills on the table and find a working compromise. So all 4 caucuses definitely had an interest in moving forward on this subject.
Governor,
Yeah, please, Bob.
Senator Northam a minute ago said that this ought to reduce the amount of health care expenditures because of asthma. Does this affect your determination at all to push for a tobacco tax that already appears dead in both houses?
It does not affect my view that that's the right way to deal with, one of the ways to deal with the budget challenge that we have, Bob. I'm a big believer in the process, though, which is I work very hard to present the best budget I can, and then I give it to the legislature, and I spend time talking to them about why I made the decisions I made. The legislature is going to make their decision, both houses, about their budgets by the 8th, and then we'll be in conference and we'll all be talking together. It doesn't affect my view that taking the tobacco tax to half the national average would be a good strategy, but I'm a respecter of the process. These houses are going to work on their 2 budgets and we'll finalize.
Well, what about the reality of the tobacco tax? The tobacco industry's giving this up. There's also money coming in from the stimulus package. There's no appetite for $150 million a year.
That is the legislature's prerogative, and if they got to figure out where the $150 million is coming from, and they're going to have to make hard decisions just like that. If we don't shrink from those, we'll make them, and then we'll have it in conference, and work out something that's the best for Virginia. Please.
Mr. Speaker, or Chris, you all are you all confident that this measure will pass the House?
There are people who are going to continue to be opposed to it. We have worked, the governor's worked with his side of the aisle, and I think assured us that we think there should be sufficient votes on his side of the aisle to buttress what we have.
So you feel pretty confident?
Oh, I'm never confident down here. I'm surprised every day.
I would just echo what the speaker said. I believe that there would be support to pass this out of the committee, but many things can change. Things turn on a dime here. We still got about 5 or 6 hours before the vote will be taken, so I don't think there's any guarantee that it's going to come out, but I feel confident that those people who have expressed an interest in it want to have the issue heard, fairly debated, have a good, healthy debate about it, and then you get to vote your conscience.
Does 5 or 6 hours give the public enough time to weigh in on this issue? You just announced this now, you want to give it 5 hours?
I believe so, because I've had hundreds of emails over the last 3 years. We talked about, I think last year they were working on a compromise. It's not like it's a new issue that's been brought up in the middle of the night. I mean, we're clear where people are within our districts, if they support it or don't support it. So, the groups will be here to speak both for and against this afternoon. They will be given ample opportunity to share what they feel is the reason we should or should not pass the bill. And there's one thing that, I think if y'all know me, we're going to be fair in the way that we go about it, and we'll have equal time for anyone who wants to talk.
Let me take one more question, and then folks will stay around to answer others. Junior.
Just a technical question about the enclosure. Is that restaurants that already have kind of smoking sections, is that going to suffice, or do they have to actually build something, or some kind of wall or partition or something?
It has to be partitioned, and it has to have a separate ventilation system so that the smoke ventilated doesn't mix in with the rest of the restaurant's ventilation system. We've looked at the bill, and it's very carefully drawn, and we think appropriately so. And so I can't give the definition standing here, but I think when you take a look at it, you'll see that it is really drawn to try to protect those outside the partition from the effect of secondhand smoke. That's the whole goal. And even those within the partition, because of the extra ventilation, workers and others who are there will receive significant protection that they don't receive now. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for helping. If you want to stay around and dialogue with individual legislators, please do.